I think we're live. Okay, so
We are.
hi.
We were waiting for you there, Mikhail.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure. So for the people watching, again, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that lunch break, and hope you're ready, set, and go for this panel discussion where we're going to be talking about marketing trends for this year and the upcoming year. So I'm joined today. My name is Michiel Dassa, and I'm joined today by Dan Taylor, who is the head of technical SEO at SEO Salt Agency, Dixon Jones, who is the founder of and CEO of Inlinks Optimization, Raluca Radu, who is the founder and CEO of MTH Digital, and Robin de Wouters, who is Communication and Commercial Director at FEDMA, the Federation of European Data and Marketing. So welcome all. Pleasure having you with us today. Thanks. So let's get started right away because we have 45 minutes and we have a lot to discuss. We were talking about it already in the beginning. So a lot of information that we want to discuss with all of you, taking into account that we have some of the well-known experts here with us today. So let's kick it off right now with the elephant in the room, which is what everybody's been talking about nowadays, which is obviously artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, right? So let's get started right away with that specific question. So question for all of you. So talking about artificial intelligence, right? And machine learning. So how has it changed your lives as marketers nowadays? We all remember the situation in January where we saw ChatGPT entering the marketing discussions for the first time. So now 3 months after, with all the revolution that's been going on, so what's been the impact on your daily life? And let's perhaps kick off with Raluca.
Hello everyone. So yes, AI is finally known to be here, but I would say that it has been here for a while, and especially for us digital marketers, I think it was clear that Google and Meta were incorporating more and more AI and machine learning into their algorithms. So I think we knew that this apocalypse is coming. So it wasn't such a big surprise, but I think that now it's clear that everyone is talking about it. The impact, even though we all see it as some sort of AI Armageddon or so to say, I think that in digital marketing, it is exactly what us as marketers were hoping for, because it was very tedious to focus a lot on a lot of modifications, texts, and other things that could have been done by a robot. And I think all of us were looking at scripts, tools and so on to automate the process. So I think that now our role will be more into strategy, and I think that we will be forced to think more strategically, to look more at the overview, at the overall strategy of a brand, and also to be more creative. I think that in this age of AI, creativity has a real chance to win and to translate into higher CTRs, higher brand recognition, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Dixon, have you seen the same thing? And do you think that an increase in creativity is also going to be the result?
I think
have you seen the tsunami coming?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think the great thing about the conversation is that very few of us can pretend we're experts right now, you know, but you can bet that every single one of us is going to pretend to be a ChatGPT consultant in the next 2 weeks. So I think that's an interesting place for it to be. I agree that once you define what you want, the creativity suddenly goes whoosh, and you just got this amazing sort of imagery. The challenge is so I think strategy is a good way to put it, but immediately before that, it's what do you tell the machine to come up with? You know, that snippet is the bit that maybe it's not strategy, but it's still the bit that you need to think about. You know, it's easy to tell the computer to draw a picture of a pope in a jacket, but it's not so easy to then come up with a reason for doing that in the first place. And I think that's where we still, you know, we've got an interesting angle. And so for me personally, because we kind of build knowledge graphs, we kind of have to figure out for us where we can add value to the ChatGPT, OpenAI system. And so what we've got is our layer of data, and then we can use the AI to do the final 10 yards, and then that's where we think we can add value. And I think for any organization, whether you're an airline, whether you're an artist, whatever it may be, the challenge for you has to be, well, where is my layer of uniqueness in the game so that I can still maintain relevance within there? And after that, it's trust. Do you trust what the AI says?
Okay, yeah, very, very good points there. Yeah, talking about trust, no, Dan, and the tsunami that we've been seeing lately. So, what's your opinion, or what have you been seeing from the technical SEO point of view as well, perhaps?
I think, like, leaving content and creativity imagery aside, the definite increase in accessibility, I'm going to more say towards technology such as this. The technical use cases aren't necessarily so much in terms of the optimization element, but I kind of lean with you on probably the easy segue into this around the trust element. A number of clients I work with and worked with, things like open platforms. So you have things like GitLab, CodePen, etc., where you can go create an account, you can spin up a board, a profile, and these systems are open to abuse mechanisms. Moz used to have a similar problem where they introduced a karma system where your profiles weren't indexed, etc., until you did a certain amount of community engagement. The platforms like your GitLabs, GitHubs, CodePens, they have a abuse system right now where, say, there's a pay-per-view boxing match going on, people will spam those, create boards, loads of exact match keywords, because it's a relatively authoritative domain, freshness. They'll rank those queries with phishing links. Now, trying to tackle that on a mass scale basis is hard, but through AI technologies like this, we can actually start to use fingerprint pattern recognition in URLs, base it on terms, and feed into AI. We know these events are coming up. We know people are going to try and spam boards to create phishing links to other things and use our platform in this way. That's going to impact the trust on our brand. If Google's fingerprint technologies identify phishing links, that's going to give us issues in Search Console and potential trust issues with Google moving forward. So we can actually scalably both protect a website from any maliciousness and third-party bad actors, but also prevent users from, oh, look, I can click on this link and see Music Fury for free. Click on it and I've lost all my credit card details. So we can use AI to train that and prevent indexing and surface malicious content.
Yeah, very interesting point as well. No? And I can also imagine from a data point of view, right? So from the point of view of the European Federation of Data and Marketing, no, Robin, there's also been quite some involvement there, no, to see where AI is going to and how it's going to affect our lives, I can imagine.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I really want to pick up on the point Dixon made about the challenges, what you tell the machine. AI is only as good as the data is plugged into. We've seen, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, that case that had a big backlash in the US where Amazon used AI as an HR tool, and it showed big bias against women because it assumed that because most higher ranking people were men, white males, that means that AI said, well, we're just going to hire white males. So most AI is not on a mature level yet. It's still developing. I mean, that was said at the beginning. It's really at the early stages. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't prepare. As marketers, we need to start preparing to be on the lookout. But back to your point about data, it all comes down to the data points. And this is something that's very important for us at Fedma, is how data is used, not only in AI, but in all types of marketing, which I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. And also, beyond the generative AI features, content creation, and so on that were discussed here, I also want to point out another use of AI is in the personalization of the customer journey. So if you take the point of view of an omni-channel context where every customer journey is unique, it will go from email to online advertising to out of home advertising to telemarketing to postal mail and so on. The solutions are limitless. AI can help also in personalizing that customer journey to ensure that the way it's delivered to the customer is enhanced and improved, for the benefit of the customer. But again, it relies on data, and that's where from our point of view, the importance of data regulations is really crucial because, and why actually the EU is looking into an AI Act, even though, we've learned that that regulation usually comes late in the game, but it doesn't mean that the industry can't also self-regulate, and put limits to itself. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Okay, great. No, great insight as well. And what you also said, so the interaction that we're doing with AI also sets the path to a brand new profession, which is also coming up recently, which is learning or understanding how to properly interact with AI, because as Dixon said before, so drawing a picture of the Pope in a Balenciaga coat, I mean, that's a very easy prompt, and the usage is also very limited. But really taking AI to the next level means working on your prompts, working on your briefings, and making them very extensive and very detailed to make sure you're getting the most out of it. So I think we're definitely in front of a very interesting era coming up. It's
a little bit like the Gutenberg press, really, in that when you could suddenly have the printed word just out of everywhere, then it took a long time for that to delve into sort of sensible concepts.
So you're comparing it even to something like the Gutenberg press?
I think it's at least as disruptive as that. At least, and I mean, it's the most disruptive thing since the internet. Since Tim Berners-Lee launched the internet, really.
Yeah, we're indeed in a very interesting era right now. Yeah, totally. So talking about AI, great. But let's also now talk about something else that's also been bothering or keeping marketers very interested and inspired these last couple of months, right? Which is acquisition costs, which among all the European countries, but also outside of Europe, have been increasing rapidly, independently on the field or sector that you're in, right? Acquiring customers is getting more and more expensive. So you've all probably had experience as well, with this rise of the acquisition cost in general. So from your point of view and from your experience, from what you've seen recently, what would be like 3 key takeaways in order to avoid that acquisition trap and be more efficient, by making sure that you're getting those leads, but that you're not paying 3 times of what you would be paying a few years ago? Any key takeaways that you have there in that specific aspect? I see you smiling, Dixon, so I don't know if you want to...
I'm just wondering who you're going to go with first, because the first person in is probably going to jump on 2 of the other person's ideas. So, so okay, thanks. So I've got 3. My 3, the first one is differentiate. I think that's always been a thing. Make sure that your product is not trying to be all things to all people. It's got to resonate with an individual. So go narrower, because that the perfect customer is going to be yours for less as an acquisition cost than somebody that you're trying to jam into your. If somebody wants a Land Rover and they end up getting offered a Subaru, then they can get from A to B, but you've got to convince them a lot more that they want the Subaru. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing for me, I can only talk from my own perspective. Really, I really work on a freemium funnel, so that you've got something that people are getting for free, where there's a trade-off between they're going to come in very, very cheap for free, but then they're in a closed loop. So then you can then talk with them and develop your proposition over a long period of time, or perhaps those free people are then tweeting about your product or whatever it may be, and being your army. So actually concentrating on that your relationship at a free level can then reduce your acquisition costs further on down. And the final one I would say is, don't concentrate on revenue, concentrate on margin, particularly if you've got clients. If you've got 10 clients, you've got a different day rate. You might have the same hourly rate for each one, but each one seems to take a different amount of hours to do. So if you concentrate on the margins, that's much more important than concentrating on the revenues, because you will find that if you concentrate on the revenues and they want discounts and they cost more to get and everything, then you find that you're making a loss on 8 out of 10 customers. That's my 3.
And you're also further identifying products or services that give you a better margin, right? Than just focusing on revenue as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about revenue per customer versus margin per customer, but yes, however you look at it, looking at margins will give you a safer set of KPIs to work with.
Yeah. Okay, great. Dan, any suggestions or key takeaways from your side?
Yeah, no, great. I can jump off what Dixon said now. That's great. So that my kind of 3 takeaways are kind of slightly different. So I work heavily in kind of like the SaaS and lead gen kind of world. And the 3 things we're trying to focus on at the moment is narrowing in more to your TAM SAM. So a lot of C-level obviously look at the total addressable market, who they can bring across, and short term, whilst the economies are going through what they are, we're trying to pivot more to actually focusing on their actual obtainable and addressable markets by their product case. And yeah, there will be edge cases out there which people can access, but it's making sure that it's the more immediate market and your market share to work on. The kind of second one around that is kind of focusing. Oh, is my sound okay?
No, I think there's a problem with your microphone. So let's, while you have a look at it, let's just go to Raluca to see her key takeaways, and then come back to you, Dan, once your microphone is working again. So Raluca, from your point of view, what main takeaways would you recommend to avoid that acquisition trap that we're talking about?
So I think first of all, it's important to look at the whole customer journey, because usually there are several touch points with a certain customer, and we tend to pay the acquisition cost for the same customer on several channels. So it's important to try to optimize the customer journey, in my opinion. And I think that here data and data-driven tools will help us more and more. And this is something that I would look into, to see all the conversion path and to see whether we can achieve the same, but with a lower cost, maybe with less touch points, for example. And secondly, I agree with what Dixon was saying. We also think it's important to look at the profit on advertising spend more than on revenue on advertising spend. So we are trying to implement this new metric, this POAS, in all the accounts, and to look at it more and more. And last but not least, I think also these AI-driven campaigns like Performance Max, which everyone is talking about, are like black boxes, and they are also increasing our costs a bit. And I think that here it's very important to take care of your tracking and analytics, codes, and so on, much more than before. And I think that it's something like you're paying more maybe on this analytics and tracking side, or for example, if you're an agency, you have a higher cost for hiring analytics data people, but at the same time, this is what could actually decrease your customer acquisition costs a lot.
Yeah, no, interesting topic. No, the black box, right? So we haven't talked yet about Google, but perhaps we could also discuss that a bit more. No, but no, the advantages of Google, no, by using AI is that setting up campaigns, no, and also for smaller players that are entering perhaps the marketing field, starting with paid campaigns is easier than ever. But at the same time, there's less control, right? So your acquisition costs are also increasing, and there's no way to actually see what's happening, no? Because you're not controlling what's happening behind the curtain. Yeah. Very interesting. Robin, from your side, any key takeaways that you have?
Yeah, I'll pick up on the first point that Dixon made, because that way it's easier for me. But in the point of differentiating and personalizing, I think that's really the key element that I would put forward. But I also want to take it from another perspective, is that personalization always comes at a cost of data, a data cost. That is something that you really need to factor in, in addition to your monetary cost, let's say. So, you know, when you want to target someone, a group, an audience, and so on, it has a cost in funds. It has a cost also in the amount of data that you're going to require, but also because, and I'm assuming we're all under GDPR, but if you're not, maybe you have your own, you know, regulation and so on. But under GDPR, you have the concept of data minimalization, which requires an organization, to only use the data that is required for the processing. And I think this is something that is often overlooked in marketing, is that the idea is, and perhaps, and hopefully I'm wrong, is, you just gather as much data as you can, and then we'll figure out a way to use it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work anymore. Or it's not that it doesn't work, it's dangerous. So you have to be aware of your data regulation, whether it's GDPR in the US, CCPA, or in others, and so on. In the UK now, there's the new DPDI bill. So be aware of that, and then balance those privacy requirements with the needs that you really need, that you have as an organization in your marketing. And it's still about personalization and differentiating. And where Lucas talked about the customer journey, it's always about making it more relevant to the consumer, to the customer, but in a privacy-friendly way. And that's something that really has to be taken into account.
Very important topic as well. Yeah, totally. So I think Dan's microphone is working again. So let's also pick back up where you left it, Dan, and also see that those key takeaways from your side.
Yeah, hopefully this is a bit better. I changed hardware. Awesome.
Great. Yeah.
So the first kind of takeaway I was covering over was refining. So a lot of companies look at keywords, they look at the search data, and they go after the TAMs, the total addressable market. Whereas with acquisition costs on the rise, we're focusing more on the actual addressable and obtainable markets, the SAM/SOM elements of those, because not that these are easier customers or easier prospects to go after, but they're more closely aligned with your current product and service offering, and are less edge cases, require less convincing, less additional bartering, comparison, etc. to bring over. That kind of Venn diagrams into the next element we're working with people on, and that is around experience forecasting. So like I said, I work a lot in SaaS, and 99% of SaaS websites are all exactly the same nowadays. It's just for commercial pages, there's bullet points, a few graphs, maybe screenshots. As well as getting the acquisition, with SaaS, the value comes in the lifetime value, so the LTV of a customer. And that starts at the acquisition stage in giving the customer adequate information, as well as in all the sales copy and resources, where they can accurately forecast the experience they're going to have with your product against their requirements. And that will help reduce churn, which obviously just builds up and increases acquisitions. You're constantly having to replace and create a more stable MMR and ARR. And then the way we kind of do that at the moment, and this is I've done with large companies like Proton and others, is actually creating feedback loops between the SDRs, so the sales development representatives, and the product teams. Because you can have one product in an organization, and the product team and product marketers will look at it one way, the sales team will look at it another, and then you end up with disjointed messaging across the board, where that breaks the value proposition, it breaks the forecasting, and customers end up being confused. Whereas by combining the two and umbrellaing it under SEO content and search stuff, we can better cater and actually match with and acquire users to the products that we actually want to, versus ones we're trying to shoehorn in because of a big marquee high search volume keyword.
Okay, great. So let's stay with you for a minute, no? Because as you also said, you have a thorough experience in working with SaaS models and the SaaS industry. So imagine that you're a marketer, right? Watching this panel discussion right now, right? And you want to take your marketing to the next level. So what should be like 4 channels that you really suggest people look into in this 2023 to take their marketing to the next level, or any specific tests that you've done with new niche channels that you might recommend? I imagine that SEO is one of them, right? But any other channels or strategy that you recommend to take your marketing to the next level?
I think at the moment it's any channel. I mean, each business will differ, each user base will differ. At the moment, it's all about visibility and being present. For the majority of SaaS companies, like I said, work with, that'll be making sure that if somebody has a query about your product, or if you have error handling elements, you're appearing for that, whether or not it's your site or you're answering somebody on Stack Overflow, or you're answering someone on Quora, and not just leaving it up to the internet to answer it for you, because you can't trust the internet to do anything, being completely frank. So it's about that visibility train, whether or not that's even if you back things up with paid search around certain comparison and brand elements, social proof and validation. I know a few SaaS companies who do a great community building through Discord and similar elements at the moment, integrating Discord with Zapier and other prompts to actually then build product value elements off the back of it in terms of support. So it's I wouldn't necessarily say for me, obviously I'm going to say SEO is one to invest in, but not necessarily from an acquisition perspective, but making sure you're visible, not even top of funnel to bottom funnel, but for any issues, even if your competitors have issues with their products. The number of companies who we look at competitors and go like, well, they throw error codes out in their systems. They don't have it in their support because somebody somewhere said, let's not talk about our error codes. We're a good product. We don't have errors. So you just go on to Stack Overflow, you make a thread under a new username, and then you have, oh no, would you look at that? You're 3 clicks away from clicking on a sign-up link for a competitor because we've just taken over that space through Stack Overflow. It's opportunities like that that people need to start exploring more and looking at digital as an asset and not just their own assets themselves.
Okay. And you were talking about offering value, I imagine. No, so you were talking about Stack Overflow. So you're offering value to people looking for solutions, right? And by offering that value, you're positioning yourself as the go-to reference, something like that. Or?
Yeah, it's not so much. I mean, offering the value is the byproduct from it, which we should all strive to do. But if someone's having a conversation that's relevant to your brand and your products, you need to be a part of that conversation. Otherwise, one of your competitors will be.
Okay, yeah, good one. Raluca, from your experience in your industry, what would you think there are, or what would you suggest any marketer to look out for in terms of channels?
I would say that yes, the main 2 channels that most marketers are using, like Google and Meta, are still top. But I would look more, and I think it's more and more about diversifying the channels, especially because the costs are so high on the top 2. The top 4, let's say, if we also take into account YouTube and Instagram. And in my opinion, it's very important to know exactly your buyer persona profile and understand where the customer is actually, and understand whether he's also using other platforms, like, for example, Reddit or Pinterest or so on, and maybe we could target that customer on other channels. So I think this is pretty important. And also taking into account the channels, I think that we are entering also this cookieless era, and it's more and more important to have your own community and your own database. So I would invest a lot in customer loyalty. So I would switch my focus as a brand, if I haven't done it until now. I would switch my focus and invest more in customer loyalty, and invest in, for example, content marketing, which also supports SEO, in having content delivered through email or through social platforms, and actually keeping the customer hooked. And I think this is what would decrease my customer acquisition costs. So also in terms of channels, this social media and newsletter, I think, are more and more important than ever.
Okay, yeah, very interesting tips there. Dixon, anything to add from your side in terms of channels?
Yeah, absolutely. I very much agree that that this idea of customer loyalty is important, and I think that means that we should be investing in what I call closed loop channels. So ones where the customer has given you permission to communicate with them. So, you know, whether it's a closed group or whether it's your email marketing list that is being properly curated. Just to Robin's, before Robin jumps in and says you can't just find the list. You know, getting people, investing in those closed loops, I think is really important, especially in the world of AI, where we're going to have a lot of mistrusted information and computerized information coming out. So it's going to be about who do you trust. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't also be investing in AI yourself. I don't think we can avoid it. And I think we must embrace it as marketers or just be left standing. And so, you know, at Inlinks, we're already GPT ready, so you can plug things in. We're working on ways in which we can write social media stuff that is going to be targeted and resonate with our audience. You know, you've got Copilot coming out from Microsoft to help you with your workday. I don't think you can not invest in all of that stuff. You've got to, but you can also invest in your brand in a way that's going to help you get into those ChatGPT answers as well. So if you type in, you know, what are the best makes of vacuum cleaner, then you're going to get brand names in there. So I think investing in brand is still very, very valuable. And that will also help you invest in basically being seen by the machines, which is just another form of SEO in my brain. And then the last one, invest in real life. I think meeting up in real life becomes increasingly important in a world where we are going to have increased suspicion about who tells us what. So I think in real life events and meetups are going to be increasingly important as well.
Especially after COVID-19, we've been
and we all want it. Yeah, absolutely.
For 2 years, and there's a lot of people also wanting to meet in real life after a tough period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So let's see Robin, because he's been silently listening right now up until now, but from a data perspective,
I'll tick the box, all of the above, and make it easy. But more specifically, I would say in terms of channel, I mean, we tackle, let's say, data and marketing from a broad perspective. So I don't want to give any. I mean, I think really it's a personal choice. It depends on the organization. I would say the best channel is the one that gets you the closest to your customer. I don't think there's a one rule fits all. Depending on your industry, your service, what you're offering, whether it's a product or a service or whatever, it really comes down to what you want to give and what you want to get out of it. One specific channel, not to make any preferences, but because I believe that, and Raluca, you mentioned the cookieless world, we are increasingly moving away from a third-party data marketing in general, not just cookieless, and I would argue we need to go more towards zero-party and first-party data. So zero-party data, in case anyone in the audience, so it's data that's collected directly by the customer. So, you know, through quizzes, games, polls, surveys, whatever. It's data that really the customer gives voluntarily directly to the organization. And first-party data is data that is collected directly but passively. So, you know, you go on our website, you use social media, you use an app. The information that you're providing by using it, that's first-party data. And I think that's where we as an industry need to move forward. I mean, it's always been there, but I think it needs to be even more so because of the demise of third-party cookies. And one channel that is particularly functional, I think, for that is email marketing. Email has kind of gone down a bit in the past, but I think it's definitely coming back with digital advertising being in the spotlight of a lot of regulators in Brussels, but around Europe. Email marketing is a way for a company to have a direct dialogue with their customers, and, you know, to really say, what do you want? You know, if I'm from Belgium, I'm a chocolate company. What kind of chocolate do you like? And if you answer that survey and you say, I like white chocolate with pistachios, whatever, you know, that's data that you provided directly, and that company can use, and that it's just there for the taking, let's say. So that's really where I would go. And the last point I would like to make, not really in terms of channel, but in terms of importance of how you're collecting the data, then this is something that's really important to us at FEDMA, is the use of legitimate interest. There is this reckoning in Europe about whether legitimate interest, which is a legal basis for processing personal data under the GDPR, is still the right way. And we argue it is. We can't base everything on consent, especially when cookie banners are so, and terms and conditions, T&Cs are so complicated and convolute and unclear that basically the consent is not really given. They're just saying yes, just to move on and, you know, get access to the content. Legitimate interest is a way for marketing to move forward. And it's always been that way. And we can't expect the marketing industry to survive without lead generation. And lead generation is all about legitimate interest. If you think of charities, for example, not just to take also examples of pure commercial aspects, but charities rely heavily on legitimate interest, because that's how they'll call people to say, do you want to donate 10 euros a month to, to help refugees from Ukraine or whatever, So all this is based on legitimate interest, and it's something that regulators are failing to see, and that we really want to put back in the spotlight. In the UK, actually, DPDI bill is very, very positive on that sense, that it is giving back the space for legitimate interest.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, because also, as to stand out as a company, as a brand, you have to, what you said at the beginning, so you have to be very aware of your zero and first party data, and start gathering that data instead of relying on third party data, which was always there but is now diminishing. So that also implies indirectly creating a strong brand, because if not, people won't be visiting your website, or they won't be taking part of your quizzes. So any suggestions there, Robin, to have that brand awareness as highly as possible, to make sure that people come directly to your website? Any tips or tricks that you can give the audience?
Yeah, I'm conscious of time, and I don't want. I feel like I've spoken a lot before in the last point, so I'll leave it at the point that I made already. Is you want a tailored approach, differentiate, tailor, personalize, but also data friendly. Collect the data that you need and only that you need. Retain the data that you need and get rid of the rest. And that's the best way to have a meaningful and trustful relationship. Someone was talking about trust earlier in the debate, and I think that's really important. It all comes down to trust, and that's how you're going to have the trust of your customers. Mm-hmm. is if they can trust you with the data they're giving you. And I'll leave it at that for this.
Okay, great. Raluca, any suggestions, tips, or tricks to get your brand out there, to get more awareness towards your company, your product or service?
Yeah, so I will build on what Robin already said. I also think these are the two main directions, like building a tailored experience and also differentiating. So on building a tailored experience, I think it all comes down to knowing your customer very well, understanding your customer profile, and understanding what would be a useful content for them, in order to, or what would be the hook to try to keep them in your community. And it comes to the same point. So I would invest in community building, basically, whether it's through newsletter or social media. And also, I think it's more and more important, especially as we are so AI driven nowadays. I think it's very important to differentiate. So yes, I think there are less and less creative campaigns and less creative brands nowadays. And I think it's also as maybe a consequence of this very technical AI-driven marketing. So I think that if you manage to stand out and to have a message, a campaign that is both tailored on your customer and answering his questions, but also creative, I think you really have a chance to build a brand. It will be highly appreciated by the end customer.
Great insight there. Dixon, you talked about closed loops, right? So how can we get people in those closed loops? Any suggestions there from your side?
Yeah, and actually moving on from what was just been said, I think one good way of trying to get that differentiator, because that's often the hardest thing as a business, to figure out how you're different to all the other businesses in the same area. And one good way to do it, and I have to thank my mate Andrew Armitage for saying this recently, if it comes back to my memory, but is to think about what you're not. So if you're one of 10, I don't know, hairdressing salons in the area, or 10 people that sell toothpaste, think about what is this toothpaste brand not? Is it, maybe it's not made of mint, maybe it's not something. You've got to think of what you're not, to try and figure out that differentiation. And it's often easier to think about what you're not and find a point of differentiation than it is to try and suddenly dream up and make up something that you don't actually believe in. So that's my tip on that.
Great tip. Yeah, and great insight. No, because it's always easy to think, or it's easier to think what you're not, no, than to define.
Yeah,
what...
we want to go in a different direction to everybody else. But you still want to stay relevant to your customers, obviously, and to your brand, and true to your brand, and true to your product. But it's just reframing your own challenge, your own statement to try and get that point of differentiation.
Totally. Dan, suggestions from your side?
Yeah, I kind of, again, building off what Dixon kind of said, it comes down to understanding what your product service is and building outwards rather than doing a TAM, SAM, SOM, doing SOM, SAM, TAM approach, in the sense that, as Dixon said, everybody always looks with envious eyes to where they're not, and they never actually probably take stock of where they actually are and their own place in the marketplace, because as you're looking out at your competitors with those eyes, they're probably looking back with you in the same in your differentiation points. And just because you feel you'll make me reaching a market saturation point, hammering home on your own USP, your own differentiation points into your own SOM part of a market and really taking a domination in that space doesn't necessarily mean you fall into a trap of, oh, company X, they do Y very well. You can broaden that position to actually they do Y, Z, W, every other letter well, because it's addressing problems in that marketplace. And having that core community and backing behind you can also help social validate and review validate the actual offering you're giving, and use that to leverage then into other edge cases, and you'll actually see that immediate market increase further.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Very, very, very. Okay, great. We still have a few minutes left, so let's finish with something that everybody's always talking about as well. So let's talk about tools, and we're all marketers here joined together. So I just wanted to quickly know 3 of the most important tools that you've been using on a daily basis that you're saying, this is something that you do need to check out because this is something, that people might not have heard about yet, but something that's really helping you on a daily basis. So I don't know, Raluca, if you want to kick it off and share some useful tools to check out this weekend, that would be great.
Yes, so I would start with checking GA4, making sure we check GA4. And I know everyone heard about it, but at the same time, I see that not everyone has started using it, and it will be more and more important. And it's very important to configure it correctly, so to have it well set up. I would also use actually Moat, which is a tool that is like a database of creatives, and I think it's very useful in order to get inspired and to be creative, as we have already established. It's very important. And last but not least, SimilarWeb Pro. If people are not using it, I think it's a great tool, especially in order to check out your competitive landscape and to see what all your competitors are doing, and also their creatives, their marketing channels, maybe the top products that they are pushing, or the top services that they are pushing.
Great insights there. Dixon, any from your side? Any?
Sorry about that. It's very difficult to have that question and not plug the ones that you're invested in. So caveat to the people here is I do apologize, but you asked me the question head on. And of course, I do use InLinks every day. And the reason I use InLinks every day is because it doesn't look at things in terms of keywords. It's an SEO tool that it looks at things in terms of knowledge graphs and entities and stuff. So it's a very different approach. And also I use every day the free majestic extension that you can get that you, into your Chrome browser, or I use it in Chrome. I think it's also in Firefox. And the reason I use that is because it tells you how influential every web page is that I'm looking at. So now I've got the equivalent of PageRank for every page, which in a world of AI where I don't trust anybody is very useful to be able to see just on my screen in front of my eyes. And then I'm going to go for a third one of video. So I use video so much more than I used to. If somebody asks me a question by email, it's often easier to record the answer and send back a video or a link to a video and show them rather than tell them. And so I'm using it for marketing. I'm using it for explaining. I'm using it for one-to-one communications. I'm using it for support tickets. And you know, I use Screencast-O-Matic, you know, which is called ScreenPal.
Yeah, or Loom or
Loom is the biggie. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great tip there as well. Dan, from your side.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have to give a caveat out here. One of the tools I use daily is one we've built. It's a tool called Mirador, which is basically Google Business Profile Manager. Work a lot with a lot of e-com companies who have 100+ brick and mortar chains and stuff. So it's just a really useful tool to manage reviews and questions and just basically hammer home like for responsiveness about actually engaging and not just letting something, it's been optimized. Let's just let it sit and we'll look at it again in a year. You have to keep actively engaging and monitoring with something. As my sound is going again.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with your microphone. But if not, let's go to Robin. Any tool from apart from the ones that have already been mentioned from your sides?
Yeah, I have to say as a caveat, we don't, since we're not a marketing, let's say we don't provide marketing tools ourselves. I don't really, I'm certainly not the expert on that. So I've typed down all those that have already been said, and I'll definitely look them up. But I really like the point about the video. It's really important. You know, you want to get to your customers, and you have to think about the attention span. They're getting 1,000 things a day, you know, so that's why there's the rise of podcasts in audio and video and so on. So I think it's not really a tool. Sorry, it's more about how you want to get your message across. That really matters. And I'll leave it at that for this point.
Plus the GDPR banners, right?
Well, if you're really asking for it, of course, then yes, of course, you have to check your data regulation and see what you can and cannot do. But I thought I had plugged it enough to repeat myself. But you've just given me it was too easy.
Okay. So on that notice, just wanted to thank you all for being here with me. Thank you all as well for the people watching. Thanks for joining us. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, Dixon. Thank you, Raluca. And thank you, Robin, for those very insightful comments and suggestions. And for people watching, hope you have a great rest of the program. Enjoy, take care, and see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.